What is going on, everybody? Malik Brown back here again, rolling out Meet the Author. And today I have the pleasure to speak with an amazing person. Today I'm speaking with Mr. Boyah J. Farah. He is the author of the book, America Made Me a Black Man. Everybody meets Mr. Boyah. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here.
Definitely. I'm glad that you are here speaking with us about this book. Because I think this is a very interesting book, and you tell a very interesting story. I'm not going to tell the story, but but if you could let the people know, what is this book, America Made Me a Black Man, about?
This book is basically it's my life, about my life in the valley in East Africa as a child, my life during the civil war from Somalia, my life in the refugee camp, and my life in America as a Black man living in the American soil.
And what inspired you to write this book? Why did you want to tell this story about your life in East Africa coming to America? Why do you think that was so important for a story to be put out like that?
I think my inspiration comes from young people, particularly young Black people in America, whose identity is nearly broken or broken. I wanted to tell them that this story of, I'm a listener of hip hop. I'm part of the American experience, and I understand that it is not easy to be Black in this country. And America taught me that. I wanted to, for this book, I want young Americans to read this book. I also wanted to make sure America looks itself in the mirror for what it has been doing to Black bodies for the last 400 years.
I know you said that you were a listener to hip hop and everything. What are some of the artists that you listen to that kind of I guess helped you through this book?
I'm 90s is my era. That was when I was young. When I was 18, 19, 20. Hip hop, Tupac comes to mind. Biggie comes to mind. Prodigy comes to mind. A Ghostface Killer comes to mind. A lot of hip hop. This book is inspired from that generation, particularly Tupac.
And I'm glad you said that, because I was about to get on the topic of Tupac, and what your book talks about, and what he talked about, kind of coincide with everything. What did Tupac do for you while you were, in your 18, 19, 20s? What did you really understand the message back then, or did it kind of take you a while to understand? But how was this message perceived to you when you were younger?
When I was younger, I was coming from a country that believes Somalia is a nation. The nickname of Somalia is a nation of poets. Our lives are about words. The only thing I inherit from my dad, who died in 1989, is nothing but words, dignity. Do not allow anyone to belittle you. That's what I carry when I came to the country. But America is not, America is not what is perceived to be when you're an outsider. When you're an outsider coming in, you don't really know about America. America introduce itself to you as soon as I get assimilated into the culture. As soon as I get a job, that's when I get to know America. As soon as I actually get to drive, that's when I get to know America. And Tupac, with the poetry behind the music, I think because of that poetic verses over the beats, I thought that was actually very close to my culture. A culture that says you're a man, you were born free, one day you'll die. Don't ever die coward. Die with your dignity and bravery and everything intact. So I thought Tupac exemplified what my father stood for, what my people stood for. That's the reason why I was attracted to his lyrics. Very brave soul.
Favorite Tupac song?
Say it again.
Favorite Tupac?
Only God can judge me. Only God can judge me. I actually listened to that more than one time when I was having a hard time in America. Just drive on the highway and listen to Only God Can Judge Me. And there's nothing between me and God. That's how I was thinking about.
Exactly. Your time in America, you talked about, you went through a hard time. Was there any feeling, of, hey, I want to go back home? Or was there any feeling of that, or was it more of like, I'm going to tough it out? I'm going to keep grinding. What was your mindset back then?
Well, my mindset was I was running away from war. Remember, I came from war, I came from disaster, I came from refugee camp. I had nowhere else to go except America. So I tried to tough it out, but America, the perpetual pain against the black bodies is super heavy for anyone to carry. It can break you down. It doesn't matter how strong you are. I never thought anything would break me down. So I fight it all. I fight it, but it's hard to fight because there's no enemies at the gate, like Somalia. So I tried my best to try to resist it, but that's probably why the inspiration came from to write this book.
And I want to ask, while writing this book, how did it feel? Did you feel like this was a sort of a therapy for you? Did you feel like you were kind of unlocking some things about yourself that you probably didn't know? What does this book do for you?
Oh man, it did a lot for me. Remember, in my culture, I came in when I was 15, so I already had a set of cultures inside of me. You can, my identity was intact. And in my father's culture, my departed father's culture, he rest in peace, he died a long time ago, says that, you don't belong to terrorists, you belong to, you gotta resist. So I really resisted going to therapist because of my culture. But as soon as I begin writing and looking America in the mirror, it does something extraordinary for me. It was the only therapy actually I've had is to write this book. So it was fantastic for me to give it a meaning, at least where my troubles come from, or where my hurt come from, and the reason why I don't sleep. So it's actually a therapy. Writing is a therapy.
Were you always a writer before you wrote this book, or was this kind of the first time you got a kind of taste of writing a full book or something like that? How did your writing career start? Did it start with this book?
In retrospect, I think I'm a born writer. The reason being is throughout my life, I always wrote. I remember 1994 in high school, Bedford High School, I wrote an essay, and I remember the teacher telling me, "Hey, you're a writer." But sometimes, until destiny overwrites that, until you have that whispers in your mind that, hey, it's time for you to sit down and write, because writing is a lonely career. You just don't. I just didn't have the realization that I have that in me. But I've always written it. I've always wrote to my bosses. I wrote to, when the cops harassed me. Everything of my life I wrote. So I've always been a writer. I've never been, told. I've never actually believed that I'm a writer until recently.
Did you ever have any authors that you looked up to?
Oh yeah, plenty.
Yeah.
James Baldwin, brave soul. Toni Morrison, brave. Nina Simone, even though she's I like her lyrics, the resistant lyrics. Hemingway, Old Man and the Sea. That's the first book I ever read. I loved it. Things They Carry, Tim O'Brien. I read that in high school as well. So there's a lot of authors that I absolutely adore, and I think writers belong to a single tribe, and I do believe they live in a special place in the galaxy of death for writers.
And all those authors have something specific that makes them special when it comes to, when people read their books and things. For you, I want to ask, what do you think makes your writing stick out? What is your style of writing, if you could, break it down?
My writing, it has poetic tone because I came from a nation of poets. It is almost to honor my dead father, to represent his culture. There's honesty. I wanted my words to be as brave as my father would want me, that wanted me to be. So it is different, and I wanted to make sure young Black kids like me when I was in high school and college, I want them to read and recognize that they belong. They came from an ancient culture that is brave. And I want young white people also to know this country belongs to all of us. And it's for us to treat one another with respect. I want that. I want my book to represent that culture of mutual respect.
For that young Black kid that's looking, reading this book? What is that thing that you want them to take away from this book? As far as just growing up in America, you see all the stuff on the news, and when you were 18, 19, things were maybe even worse back then. But what's the one thing you want that young Black kid to kind of learn when growing up in America?
I want them to know that America isn't America without the Black experience. When you're outside of the country, you don't know much about America except Malcolm, except Tupac, except all these celebrities that represent America. I want them to know that they are special, they are connected, and they are not minority. Black people are not minority. You're not. I want to make sure they are connected to something larger than what they see in the hood or in the block. Because sometimes you could feel lonely in this America where there's a lot of forces coming at you. You don't even know how to channel it. I want them to know that they belong. Africa, they are American-born Africans, just like I am an African-born American. So there is connection.
I want to ask you, East Africa. What is East Africa like? Now, how would you describe East Africa now?
It's a beautiful place. I just came from there. People are on the rise to develop their nations. People are getting educated. People are, the greatest thing that ever happened to us is the plethora of cheap media. People cannot lie to each other anymore. Anybody can pick up a phone and tell the truth about Africans. I remember when I was in high school, the only thing we were looking at on TV were Africans we have never seen before, half naked, running around in the jungle. That is not the case. Africa is rising. East Africa is rising. And some of the places are actually fantastic. You're never going to believe Africa is like that. It's so it is a place of love, a place of poetry, a place of dance, a place of culture. And I want you to travel and see it for yourself.
Definitely want to go out there. Definitely want to. I want to ask you, when somebody's reading this book, what's the perfect setting for them to be reading this book at? Where should they be reading it? Should they be reading it in a restaurant? Should they be in East Africa reading it? Where's the perfect setting for somebody to read this book?
My favorite place in America is the coffee shop. So I'm always sitting at a coffee shop. I spend many hours. I also spend many hours at a library. But I'm a person of a symbol. My life is super simplified. You could be somewhere at the beach reading it. You could be in the coffee shop reading it. The important is to nurture the mind and understand you're reading something that's as honest as the sky, so you can it can better your life.
To wrap it up here, Boyah, again, thank you for coming on, speaking with us about this book. To wrap it up, I want to ask if there's one word that you can describe this book in, what would that word be and why?
This book is a book of hope, and it's also a book of love. And the reason why I'm saying is my life has been full of turmoil and tragedies. And if I'm sitting here talking to you, that right there is a hope. I've seen war, I've seen refugee camp, I've seen racism, which is worse than war, because perpetual war against the body is worse. So I would say hope. You never lose that hope, regardless of what happens to you in life. You keep moving, and that's what I would say. Hope.
Love and hope. Well, Boyah, thank you so much for coming on, speaking with us about this book. Before we go, let the people know where they can find the book, where they can find you if you have social media, and yeah, this is your time to plug yourself.
Yeah, I'm present on all social media: LinkedIn, Boyah J Farah, Instagram, Boyah J Farah, Twitter, Boyah J Farah. The book is available in almost everywhere. I mean, it's available at Target, it's available at Walmart, it's available in Barnes and Nobles, it's available on Audible.com. So it's everywhere. You just Google Boyah J Farah, or you can Google America Made Me a Black Man. It's a blessing. I appreciate the love, man. You're a wonderful soul.
Thank you so much. Make sure everybody go Make sure you go check it out. Like I said, Walmart, Target, Barnes & Noble, it's everywhere. Make sure you guys check this book out, America Made Me a Black Man, Boyah J. Farah. Thank you so much, Mr. Boyah, for coming on, speak with us. This was amazing. I hope people go out and get this book. It is very interesting and very insightful. And thank you for coming on this platform and speaking everything about this book. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Great spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. This is Rolling Out. Meet the author, my special guest, Mr. Boyah J. Farah, author of America